Father's Day is a tricky one to preach. Just like Mother's Day, it's loaded with hidden heartaches and traumas at every corner. It's tempting to just gloss over the fact that today is a big Hallmark holiday and cut straight to the gospel this morning, but of course, the folks who came up with the Revised Common Lectionary must have had a sense of humor. This week's Matthew reading won't fall on Father's Day every 3-year cycle, but wow, when it does, it makes things kind of awkward, don't you think? For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's foes will be members of one's own household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Okay. These words are kind of harsh. We tend to hold family up on a pedestal. When it comes to making choices, often when tasked with choosing a certain path over the wishes of our families, we weigh heavily the repercussions of such an action. We don't rock the boat over Thanksgiving dinner when Uncle Steve makes xenophobic comments. We keep our dreams to ourselves because our mom has been pushing for us to go into a sensible career our whole lives, and then we went into ministry. Just kidding, my mom's very supportive. And in America, we talk a lot about family values, and there are several iterations of this that use the word family as a coded way to push a religious or political agenda. Focus on the family, traditional family values, etc. are all things we've heard in Christian contexts and are often used to prop up heteropatriarchal values that undercut the validity of families that are structured differently from the norm. When we begin to understand that by placing such a high value on family as an impenetrable structure, we've created an idol, and it's easier for us to understand how Jesus' words could apply to us today. In his time, family meant stability. Family was the way you got by and knew you had a future. As they mentioned in the Pulpit Fiction podcast that I listened to, they said that family was your 401k. They were your social status. This is how you had your wealth. These were the people in your immediate circle, your neighborhood, the folks you lived with, the people you hung out with. Strong family ties meant a more comfortable, predictable, status quo-y kind of a life. To say that he's come to set children against parents isn't to give kids the license to quarrel with their parents, even though my 5-year-old would love that loophole. It is in actuality a call to be profoundly uncomfortable, vulnerable, and thus completely open to God. Jesus isn't anti-family, but he is aware that when we are more worried about filial piety and not upsetting grandma, we make for sloppy bearers of the word. Especially since often we are not given easy tasks as Christians. Our role as followers of Christ will often set us against the world we live in. It will ask us to speak up on the side of love and justice when we're in a room full of people who think differently. It will demand of us to speak truth, even though truth won't always fit into the polite, people-pleasing model our parents would prefer us to follow. It's not easy to stand in the truth with people who we don't have any relationship to. I mean, how many times have you ever just nodded along with a rant from a near stranger just because it's easier than saying your own feelings on the matter? I did I did this just this week because I didn't have the capacity to argue with someone on the phone why they should care about other people. It's hard when that person we're engaged in conversation with is also family, though. It makes navigating those conversations even harder. There is a serious cost that comes along with following Jesus Christ. Becoming Christian isn't quite like waving a magic wand. Hold on, wait for it. I don't have a magic wand nearby, but I do have a lightsaber. And, poof, all of your troubles will be gone. That thing is still going. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm sorry, I activated the lightsaber. Okay, I think we're good. All your troubles will be gone. That's not how this works. You never have to walk alone through these troubles, but there will be toil. There will be controversy. There will be challenges to face that you'd honestly rather not have to deal with. The prophet Jeremiah laments some of those costs of being one who follows God. In our reading, we heard an exposed, vulnerable lament, which seems accusatory and shocking that Jeremiah would be so bold when addressing God. But we read it and hear someone who is speaking God's truths and only has come up against mockery and derision and humiliation. His friends laugh at him and they're waiting for him to slip up and to stumble, and he wants to give up, to stop speaking truth. He is tired of being set up for failure by God again and again and again. But even as he swears he is done with this prophet business, he can tell he won't be able to keep his mouth closed for very long. God burns within him. The words must come out. Jeremiah is no stranger to this later call to place God over all else. Does he like it? No. Does he argue with God over it? Yes. Does God abandon him for being mad about the frustrating situation he finds himself in? Of course not. God rescues the life of the needy from the hands of the wicked. God is beside Jeremiah like a dread warrior. I'm not going to turn it back on, but the lightsaber, I just, had to bring that back out again because it's for some reason on the couch next to me. God is dogged in the way we are always supported and accompanied while we do God's work. Will things turn out the way we envisioned them when we decided to take the path God lays out for us? Not always. Will our words get twisted around and taken out of context? Likely. Are the risks and costs of discipleship worth it? We might find ourselves asking that question from time to time. If we can learn anything from the example Jeremiah sets out for us, it's that we can bring anything to God, no matter how borderline blasphemous it might feel. God is our closest confidant. And if we are harboring doubt within, God knows it's there anyway. When we openly lament, question, and even accuse God of the bait and switch when we speak truth to power and find ourselves humiliated, we give God an opportunity to respond. We just have to be courageous enough to listen to the answers we are given. The gospel, when applied to our lives, has the potential to disrupt our relationships. It has radical asks of us that will push us past our comfort zones. It will cause us to look at the world in a different way than many of our friends and family members. While keeping in relationship with one another is essential, our relationships must be honest and unafraid. We must weigh the consequences of making people uncomfortable when we see that discrimination and racism and hatred and bigotry of all kinds are rampant. So I leave you with this question. What injustices are you willing to accept to avoid discomfort? Wrestle with it. Take it to God in a Jeremiah-style lament. Really assess how this sits with you. In which ways do you need to learn to be comfortable with discomfort? May God strengthen you in tough conversations. Help your voice to be strong even when it will most certainly go unheard, and reassure you to speak up anyway. You are called by Christ to shake things up, and you will never be left abandoned for standing in God's truth.